much live from the White House tonight. I want to go now to the Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu, who sits on the House Judiciary Committee, which, of course, will be drafting articles of impeachment. Congressman, great to have you with me tonight. So the House Intel Chair, Adam Schiff, says he's working on the report. They have started that process, which, of course, they have to do to technically formally hand it to you. He, though, is not ruling out more depositions or hearings. Do you think, Congressman Lieu, that more public hearings are needed at this point?
Thank you, Erin, for your question. Let me first say that impeachment is one of the gravest powers of Congress, second only to our power to declare war. It must always be our last option. Now, the evidence that has already come out certainly looks very bad for the president. But let me clarify, no decision has been made as to whether or not we impeach the president. We're going to get a report from Intelligence Committee. We'd love if Ambassador Bolton would decide to testify. We'd love it if Mick Mulvaney would come and testify. But we're not going to wait months and months for a Supreme Court to make a decision on whether or not we can compel them to testify before we move forward.
All right. So the president says today that his party is strongly behind him. Here he is in that interview.
I don't think I've ever seen support in the Republican Party like we do right now.
And Congressman, on a lot of levels, it looks like he's right. No Republicans so far in the House have said they would vote to impeach, even after 2 weeks of testimony, which has consistently and repeatedly said that there was a quid pro quo at the direction of the president. In fact, Congressman Will Hurd, who is retiring, the most moderate Republican on the Intelligence Committee, a lot of people thought that he could be someone who could go for impeachment. He has now said the president's call was, quote, inappropriate, misguided foreign policy. But then he went on to say this.
An impeachable offense should be compelling, overwhelmingly clear, and unambiguous, and it's not something to be rushed or taken lightly. I've not heard evidence proving the president committed bribery or extortion.
If you can't get Hurd, do you think you can get any Republicans to vote for impeachment?
One of the greatest disappointments that I've seen are current elected members of Congress who happen to be Republican, who seem to look at the facts in a very partisan manner. What these 2 weeks of hearings showed is that the President of the United States solicited foreign interference in our elections. That's illegal. He then made it worse by using the powers of his office to withhold critical military aid to Ukraine, to withhold an important White House meeting, to pressure the Ukrainians to launch 2 bogus investigations into the Bidens and the DNC. We had former Reagan speechwriter Peggy Noonan today write an op-ed that basically said the president and his defenders have no real good defense for what the president did. I wish my Republican colleagues in Congress would see the same thing.
So you have John Bolton in this context, right? You saw his tweet today, right, blaming the White House for blocking him from his Twitter account. And he questions whether they did it, quote, out of fear of what I may say. This is the big question. You said you don't want to wait into the new year. But do you think that getting somebody like John Bolton or Mick Mulvaney is now essential to get somebody like Congressman Hurd on board? And is it even worth it?
So I'm a former prosecutor, and what happens in these investigations is oftentimes you'll get a lot of evidence, and then you realize to get the next tranche of evidence, you might have to wait a very long time, and you make a decision as to whether or not there's enough to go forward. But it doesn't mean the investigation stops. The investigation is going to keep on continuing. So if at any time Ambassador Bolton wants to do the right thing and come to Congress and tell us what he knows, we're going to gladly take that.
If Mick Mulvaney wants to do the right thing, we'll hear him. Go ahead with your vote. Do you think you could still fight it in court and have him appear sometime next year, even when you're not in a formal impeachment, as oversight? You could still have him come in and deliver his testimony, or no?
Right. So unfortunately, Ambassador Bolton's attorney has said that he will fight the subpoena in court, which means they'll go all the way to the Supreme Court, and it'll take a very long time for that decision. But Ambassador Bolton could just do what his staff has done and come forward and tell Congress what he knows. That will be the patriotic thing to do.
The House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is going even farther than the president's team, right? They think that there won't be a vote for impeachment. But McCarthy's telling Manu Raju that they're going to get every single Republican to vote against impeachment, and that, quote, I think we're going to gain Dems. That they think Democrats are going to come over to their side. Are you 100% sure that Democrats will all vote to impeach? Obviously, even for the inquiry, you didn't have 100%.
That's correct. For the inquiry, there are 2 Democrats that did not support the inquiry. There was 1 independent and former Republican, Justin Amash, who did. And what we know now, based on the facts, is that the president abused his power. He pressured Ukraine to launch 2 bogus investigations to interfere in our elections. Now, what members of Congress do with those facts, it's going to be up to our conscience, the districts that we represent, and then we're going to make a decision in December.
In December. All right. Thank you very much, Congressman Lieu. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Erin.
Out front next, the breaking news. Intelligence